but mainly the connection with Charles is through the Ron Thulin School, and Ron is just an outstanding broadcaster. And on top of that, a really good guy. And I would say the same things about this gentleman. Of course, he was an outstanding player in college, University of Tennessee, and after finishing up his football career, went into the broadcasting. And not all former players turn out to be tremendous broadcasters. This guy has. That's Charles Davis, who joins us now. Hey, Charles.
Hey, Robert. How you doing? It's good to talk with you again.
Good to talk to you. And, my listeners, last couple of weeks, I've had more. We have a deal called TPTers, triple play texters,
Okay.
people that don't really call in, they just text. And I've had a number of them say, please get Charles Davis on. We want Charles Davis to talk draft. And I said, well, prior to the draft, these guys are doing a lot of homework, and I don't like to bother you guys when you're into the draft guides and watching tape and prepping. And I know you did a lot of NFL Network stuff, and so I said, well, I'll get him after the draft, and then we can kind of talk about what happened. Just in general, obviously the ratings were out the wazoo, but because of COVID-19, this was a stay-at-home virtual draft. In watching this thing come off, what's your overall thought?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you being so nice and looking out for me and all, but you never have to worry about that. You can always call pre-draft, post-draft, anytime you want. That part's nice. The second part is apparently my robo texting has worked to get me back on the show. I was able to get that in place. So you got all those texts thinking they're from very nice people. They're all from one source, just me trying to get back on your show. So thanks a lot for taking that. I appreciate it. But all in all, I don't know anyone connected with the league that could be displeased by what happened. I think that fans overall embraced it because this country knows how to adapt and adjust very well. We may ultimately want to go kind of back to where we did it before, but I didn't hear very many complaints about the execution of what was going on with this draft. And I think people understood, or at least had a basic idea of what it was taking to actually be, pull all that together. What those technicians did, the people who operated behind the scenes to put this together from NFL Network and from ESPN, they're the ones who are on the front lines doing it. They're the ones that deserve all the applause. The people who were on yakking, they did a terrific job, as they always do, but their job was easier because all they had to do was go, you talk, do what you do. This is what you normally do. These people had to string together something that maybe they haven't done before and coordinate it and get it connected. I thought it was just sensational for what they were able to do. I think the only downside that I've heard is maybe a little too in-depth into some of these kids' lives. Some of these things that you're popping out on the biggest moment that they've had in their 18 to 22 years, and we're bringing up things from their past or their family's past that may not be the most positive or may not have any real relevance on where they are now. I thought they got a little bit too deep, not even a little. They got a lot too deep into that. But other than that, I thought it was just sensational.
Yeah, I can remember one in particular, and I forget the name of the player. It was a first-round draft pick.
Probably T. Higgins.
Yeah, about his mom.
Yeah, that was
and my wife and I were watching it together, and she goes, "Wow, that's pretty rough."
Yeah, and the craziest part about it for me was when I saw it back. It wasn't just what they listed, but there was no conclusion to what they listed. We don't know. Did she win? Did she lose? I mean,
yeah.
I guess the implication was that she won, but it never should have been out there in the first place. I mean, really, is that necessary today? I don't think so.
No.
But anyway, other than that, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, the two visual things I came away with were what the rest of the country came away with. Now, I wouldn't trade my dog for any dog out there, but if I was going to, I would probably consider that husky that Bill Belichick owns. And the next time I go to Arizona, I'd like to stay with Cliff.
Yeah, we absolutely would. I mean, for a guy, look, let's just be frank about it. I like Cliff. Tremendous college player. I did his games when he played.
But he's living a charmed life.
Yeah, he left Texas Tech as a 35 and 40 fired coach who's had 1 year in the NFL with a sub 500 record, and he's living large. I
Yeah,
got to
he
give
is
it to him.
living.
We all want to be Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, and you know what? Yeah, Dean Blevins last night on the Sports Blitz in Oklahoma said, "Well, Jerry Jones gave everybody in this state a lot more reasons to cheer for the Dallas Cowboys." And I'm kind of looking at the screen going, he gave a lot of people in this state that like Crimson big reasons. But I mean, OSU used to have. There was one time there were five: Dan Bailey, uh, uh,
Mike
Whedon,
Jarwin.
Brandon Whedon, Des Bryant. Who else? Ori Lemon was on that team, and oh gosh, the running back that got in trouble.
Oh, Randall.
Randall, Joseph Randall. Those five. There's a picture in the OSU football office. Those five guys standing at AT&T Stadium, and I said it is metamorphed. I mean, now Blake Jarwin is there. Blake's doing
Yep,
great,
Blake's there.
but now
Yep.
there's a bunch of Sooners on that Dallas Cowboys team, and C.D. Lamb slid all the way to the Sooners. And I tell you what, there'll be some teams in the NFL I think will regret that because I mean I'll give the guy his due. C.D. Lamb's a heck of a player.
Yeah, and I think that the stories you heard after he fell to 17, Dallas took him were pretty spot on. I talked with one of my friends in the Dallas organization. He said it's true. We didn't. He said, we all do those games of mock drafts. The
Right.
mock drafts that we do as people, Robert, you, I, whoever it is. That's one thing. And believe me, teams actually monitor the mock draft people that they quote unquote respect because they think they might actually be able to glean some information out of it. If they see a pattern, if they see one guy going to the same team on multiple things, they start to lock in on things of that nature. So those do get locked in on. But the teams themselves do an exercise, and they do it over and over and over, and they do different permutations. They do the what-ifs. If this guy goes here, what will they do? Well, we think that he's, and right on down the line. Bottom line is, after all of that, my contact in Dallas told me, he said there wasn't a single one of those that we did that had C.D. Lamb getting to us at 17. We just never saw it. Like there was no way he could get to 17. And all of a sudden, there he is. Whatever draft strategy you've concocted in the beginning that you've put together as a system and as a blueprint, that goes right out the window when C.D. Lamb falls to you at 17. You go ahead and take him and work from there. And I think it was a wise choice by the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, and there's so many things. Charles does the NFL now primarily. Did a great job when he was calling college football games as Fox lead college announcer, but now mainly in the NFL. Still dabbles a bunch because you're very much present at the Senior Bowl and the Combine now. How'd you like your increased role at the Combine? You've done a lot, but it seemed like you were more large at the Combine this year.
I mean, truthfully, Robert, it felt about the same. Didn't feel like there was a whole lot different. In fact, it's probably I'm not arguing with you at all, trust me, but
yeah,
it's actually a little bit less because normally on the third day I end up upstairs with Daniel Jeremiah and we go through the whole third day like that. But that didn't happen this year, so I still got plenty of time. You're exactly right about that. Plenty of air. Spent some great time downstairs with on the concourse set with Chris Rose and Peter Schrager and Mark Ross, the former Giants executive, and yeah, we got plenty of pops in, plenty of opportunity, and that's a great time for me because I'm playing catch up from the end of the NFL season. By the time you get to the Combine, it is a cram session for me. It's like being back in college. I'm getting ready for midterms or finals because I follow college football as best I can, but I don't get to watch it nearly as much as I would like. So I'm catching up and working. I'm essentially like an NFL coach. A lot of the teams, hey, we want you to give us your evaluation on these players. Well, they can't do it during the season. They don't have the time to break down that kind of tape.
No.
They're trying to win a ball game each week. So from the time their season ends, that's when they grind the college tape. So I feel like I'm one of those teams trying to get ready and go. It used to be when I was fortunate enough to be as you said, the lead guy on Fox calling the college games. It was a heck of a lot easier. I saw the bulk of these kids. By osmosis, I knew who these kids were. getting ready for the draft was a lot easier coming out of the college world.
Couple of things in the first round, and really throughout the draft, it seemed like everybody was talking about the wide receivers, and there were a lot of good wide receivers. But I tell you what, I came away from the first round thinking offensive tackle. I mean, the big guys got a lot of love.
Yeah, and we knew there was going to be a run early on them. We wondered how far it would go down. A lot of mock drafts, including mine, had a tackle going to Tampa Bay at 14. Ended up going a tackle going at 13, but he would be the last of the big four. And you're right. All of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. I did one mock draft. I think I went 8, 9, 10 offensive tackle. I think I went 8, 9, 10, 14 was the mock draft, and all of them were offensive tackles. And it broke down similarly to that one in this case. And it was an interesting deal in how it all worked out, because when you went back and studied it, the Giants were almost a lock to take an offensive tackle and start the dominoes. Which one would it be? And last year they surprised everyone with Daniel Jones, quarterback. And in talking with someone very prominent in that organization, I said, okay, what took you to Jones? And he said, I had to have an adult in the room. You know, I had to have an adult leading my team. That's how he viewed Daniel Jones. Well, if you look at these offensive tackles this year, Robert, Andrew Thomas was the adult because of play, because of experience, all those starts at left tackle, the position you're looking for. Remember, Tristan Wirfs and Jedrick Wills are right tackles that were converting. Thomas had played that spot before, and then Becton, of course, was the other one who had been trimmed down from 390. So you would make the case that, okay, that's someone you have to work with and monitor and keep an eye on that scale. Andrew Thomas, you don't hear about that. And a lot of the scouts would say the same thing. He may not have the biggest ceiling, but he definitely has the highest floor. And what that means is they expect him to be the guy that plays right away, plays well, and is going to give you 10 years of really good play. Will it be all-star play? Will it be Pro Bowl play? They think at certain times. But will he be an all-pro all the time? Who knows? But he's going to give you 10 years of really good play, and that's what that term means. So that's why he went to the Giants, because they want those adults in the room.
Yeah, the other thing, improvement with the Big 12 in 5 guys going in the first round. And I had more people texting me saying, how did TCU miss a bowl game last year? They ended up with 5 players picked and 4 of them, I think, in the top 40. But your alma mater conference, the SEC, just continues to distance itself, both in numbers, total numbers, and then LSU, what did they do? Tie Ohio State for the all-time number of players drafted. I mean, it was you felt like an LSU player was being picked every other pick.
Yeah, you certainly did, didn't you? They did very, very well, and I think that every one of their draft-eligible players, at the least, signed an undrafted free agent contract. I mean, they just flat out loaded, obviously, and well, they won national championships. Sometimes that plays out exactly as you're looking. But, you know, that's just the SEC. You know, it's just the way it is. It's going to be like that for as long as we can foresee, and it has been like that for a long time. But LSU, Alabama prior to them, meaning prior to them as a champion, that sort of a thing. The thing I always take into account, though, is the best teams in the best conferences do 2 things. They recruit well and they develop well. Because drafting all these players, not every one of them's a developmental player, right? You're not taking a flyer on the bulk of them saying, well, they're great athletes, let's see what we've got. They had to have been coached well, put in a position, taken the reins and run with it. The biggest – look, Sadiq Charles, that big tackle for LSU that went later on, he would have been a second-day guy. He would have gone rounds 2 or 3 if he didn't have off-field issues, if he didn't have disciplinary issues. If he gets that cleaned up, someone got a steal. Remember the year Lyle Collins got in all that trouble right before the draft?
Yep.
He became a person of interest in I think it was a murder case, and of course it turned out he didn't do it and the whole thing. But he doesn't get drafted because no team wants to take a chance that all of a sudden I got a guy who's going to be spending time, is going to be in jail. And then he becomes an undrafted free agent. Dallas gets him and essentially gets a first-round draft choice, and they plug into their lineup. I mean, that's what you get sometimes, and that's what you get from these types of players. They're very, very good, but they've been coached well for the most part. They've been developed well, and that's one of the reasons that they're competing for national titles.
Charles Davis with us from Fox Sports, NFL color analyst for Fox Sports on Sundays, and also works with the NFL Network quite a bit. And of course, formerly was the lead college color analyst for Fox Sports. We saw him a bunch over the years in Stillwater, and former Tennessee player. Um, the other thing I was going to bring up: fans are always a little panicky when their team doesn't get a player drafted. And for Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State, first time since 2008, they've done pretty good about having players in the draft. And next year should be a huge year. And I mean, I kept telling fans, would you rather Chuba Hubbard have gone in this draft or play for the Cowboys next season? I mean, the
Right.
answer is obvious. Same with wide receiver Tylan Wallace. And then here's the guy, Tevin Jenkins, you may not be as familiar with, and I see him every day. At the end of the year, Pro Football Focus, and I know some guys over there, and they sent me a deal. Do you realize Tevin Jenkins' man this season not only didn't register a sack, his man never touched the quarterback all season long. His assignment in pass pro never touched an OSU quarterback, and I'm like, whoa. So he jumps up and actually came out before. Back in January before school started, and said, "I'm coming back." And I'm thinking, well, heck yeah, he's coming back. Well, then I thought, oh yeah, those pro football. Yeah, he might have been a guy that would have been picked. But anyway, Cowboy fans should relax, I think. What do you think?
Oh, I think there's any question about it. To be able to get those guys back and people not going out early and being able to come back and hone their craft. Now, the beauty of what I've seen, Robert, lately is remember when we really got into this, where these kids were, do I stay or do I go? And if they were really top 10 type kids, okay, let's just use Jadeveon Clowney as our great case study, all right, the big defensive end out of South Carolina. You remember, everybody was talking about he would have been the first pick that year, remember? But he decided to go back to school. So he goes back to school. What happened that year? There was a ton of discussion about, is he playing to protect himself? Is he playing all out? He missed one ball game. You remember there was a little bit of controversy with Steve Spurrier where they're like, hey, is he going to play? I just found out he's not going to play. And it was, an hour before kickoff?
Right.
So those types of things kick in. That doesn't do a college football team much good, frankly. Like, that doesn't help your harmony in your locker room. It doesn't help you on the field because the kid may or may not be going all out. He may be playing to protect himself. He may not play all the plays. All those things kick in. But if you got kids coming back, and what I've seen in recent years in college football is that they come back and they play. Like, it's not just to improve their draft stock, which it does, but they come back and they play for the old university. And I think that's, to me, I'm seeing a very positive pattern that way. I realize the bowl games aren't what they used to be in terms of, hey, some of those kids are going to sit that out. But during the regular season, if you're competing for a championship, I've seen the vast majority of those kids who have decided to come back to school, who would have been draft picks the year before, and they've come back and they haven't played to protect themselves. They play very hard for their schools. So I think that bodes very well for Cowboys fans.
And on a personal basis, I'll give you this because you can use this next year. It wouldn't be Senior Bowl because Chuba still will be a fourth-year junior, I think, after next year.
But if he graduates, he would be eligible.
He'll graduate, so he would be eligible.
If he graduates, he's eligible to play.
He graduates in December, so
he'd be eligible to play.
Well, you can use this. Tuesday's the day that the media talks to players after practice, and they come over across the street from the training center to the stadium. The last guys to ever on Tuesday speak with the media are Chuba and Tylan Wallace. And I can tell you this from being at practice on every day. They're the last two players, literally. They are the last two players, maybe the quarterback sometimes with them, that leave the practice field. They have their own work routine that they do after practice together. So there is no doubt these two guys, they pay the price every day. They work as hard, if not harder, than anybody on the team. So, that's, and I know Mike Gundy loves to point to those two guys. All right, last question.
Yeah. Definitely
This is
appreciate that, Robert. That's always good
yeah.
info and good insight into
Oh, I
who these
mean,
kids are. Appreciate
yeah,
that.
and it's a physical. It's a post stretch.
Yep.
It's extra work on the jugs machine catching balls. I mean, they're and that's something Chuba's going to have a chance to prove this year. He's a good receiver. That'll help him with the NFL. All right, personal basis. One of my kids' players played drafted for the Chiefs last year, running back Thompson, and they take in the last pick of the first round. They take the running back from LSU, Edwards-Helaire. So I
Yes.
mean, I'm not dumb. A first round draft pick running back, Darian, he may want to think about maybe he might have to change addresses. Maybe the Chiefs keep him as a third. I don't know what'll happen there. And then a former OSU player, Justice Hill at Baltimore. And then the second round, they take J.K. Dobbins. I think it was
Yep.
second round, maybe
Second
third.
round. Correct. No,
Second
second round.
round, and so, you know, if you're in either Justice Hill or Thompson in Kansas City, obviously you start working really hard because they put a challenge in front of you. But what does that mean in the draft? Does that mean the Ravens aren't sold on Hill, or they're worried about their number one guy getting older? I mean, how do you read into those picks?
Oh yeah, it's an easy read for me, Robert. The Ravens, who are a heavy run team,
Yes,
you're
they
really
are.
leading with Mark Ingram. Okay, Gus Edwards has backed him up quite well, but you get a chance to get a better player and
Yeah.
bolster a position of power for you. So now, the way I would see it, all things being equal, no injuries, the Ravens depth chart will read Ingram 1, J.K. Dobbins 2, and then they got to figure out what they're going to do with that third guy. Special teams, all that comes into play. If they end up going four deep, does Gus Edwards make it? Does Justice Hill make it? Somewhere along the line, someone's going to lose out because, it's a numbers game and you just got to figure out what you're doing. But this team ran for over 200 yards a game last year. They want to continue to do that, and they want to take some of that pressure off of Lamar Jackson. They want to have those threats there so that you can't just jump on Lamar in every play. So that's why you make that pick there. For Kansas City, going at 32, you have to understand they're hitting contracts with guys too. I know that Damian Williams could very well have been the MVP of the Super Bowl. He played that well. Okay, Patrick
Yeah.
Mahomes was terrific, of course, but Damian Williams made a lot of big plays in that game, and I've heard a lot of people, why wasn't he the MVP? And it's a legit conversation. But his contract is coming up, and he barely ran for 500 yards during the season. Dinged a number of times, came back and played well. And then behind him, as you mentioned, there's Darian Thompson, and Shady McCoy was behind him, who I think is really at the end of the road. And Andy Reid, and I'll tell you a quick story. Andy Reid saw Kareem Hunt. Remember him?
Yeah.
Saw
Oh,
him
yeah.
a few years ago at Toledo, and you know where he saw him? Sitting at his desk. Andy's sitting at his desk, drawing up game plans, getting ready for a game. He's got the TV on, Maction Tuesday or Wednesday night game.
Oh, yeah. Love
Right.
that Maction.
In Maction, and he saw two of them, I believe. I remember him telling me this. I saw him play twice, and I was just fascinated. I said to the scouting guys, who is this guy? Give me more, blah, blah, blah. They ended up getting him in the third round. He was really good for them before he got into trouble off the field. And now he's in Cleveland, and, he's got to still battle some of that stuff of his own doing. Before him, he had Brian Westbrook in Philadelphia. And he thought that this kid reminded him of Brian Westbrook. And, in fact, he thinks that he's better than Brian at this stage going into it. But as we know, Brian Westbrook turned into a performance for the Eagles that he's part of their, ring of honor. So the kid's got a ways to go there. But when that's what your coach is comparing you to and how he sees you in the offense, he's going to have a prominent role. I don't think Shady McCoy's there anymore. I think that Damian Williams, we'll see. Remember, it's a contract year for him. Obviously, Darian's going to have to work hard at it. I love that kid. I think he's a terrific player. But those guys will find roles in the league. If it's not in their current address, there are other places to go because good runners who can play special teams are they have good value in the NFL. But that's why these teams made those selections. Andy sees this kid as a huge part of what he's going to do offensively and be a mainstay for him for the next 4, 5, 6 years to come. Just to, at a minimum as he sees it right now. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and I had Dobbins in my mind. He was the best back this year, more than more than Edwards-Helaire, more than Taylor. I thought Dobbins would have been my number one pick. But and I know you can sit here and say, yeah, Robert, you're down there in Stillwater. We know you bleed orange. I'm just saying, and I'm glad Chuba didn't go, but I would take Chuba over any of those guys. And I mean, I see him every day, but I also know that Chuba doesn't get the offensive line play that a back at Ohio State or even Wisconsin does. And I mean, that's nothing against Charles Dickey and his group; they do a good job. But I tell you what, I'm glad I get to see Chuba one more year because Charles, he's the best back, and I'm saying this, he's the best back I've seen here since Barry.
That's high praise. And he's played to a very high level. He's been fun to watch. As I've said, I don't get to watch nearly as much college football as I would like. But I've got friends in the business. I got friends over at OSU, and they've told me plenty about him and what they like about him, and everything's high praise. And when you watch him play, it is fun to watch. So it's going to be interesting to see him progress through this season and then go through the whole process. Because, as you know, the process run up to the draft.
Oh,
I tell parents all the time. I said, if you could ever do yourself one favor, ignore all of us. Okay, ignore that we exist. Meaning us on TV talking about it, us on the internet sending out information, us doing whatever. Just ignore it. Let your be there for your kid. There's going to be ups and downs. I said, here's the thing. If you read the mock drafts that we do or the writings that we do, one day you're going to be really, really happy. 2 weeks later, a week later, you're going to read something and be really, really mad. Do you really want to ride that roller coaster? I said, if I were you, I just let the whole thing go. Your kids' talents are being judged by those 32 NFL teams, not me, not Mel Kiper, not Daniel Jeremiah. We have our opinions, and most of them are pretty well grounded in really good understanding of football, understanding of teams, etc. But that doesn't mean what we think is what the NFL thinks. That's the only one that matters.
Yeah, if you want a roller coaster, go to Universal or Disney or Six
Exactly.
Flags or something. Yeah. Hey, Charles, I appreciate
to
it.
do that as a parent. I could not imagine being a parent
Yeah.
having to ride that roller coaster with my kid. That's a tough one. But anyway,
Hey,
it's
I
going to turn out
appreciate it.
well.
Yeah, we kept you long. I appreciate it.
No
But
problem.
going back to the days you'd come on during the college season,
Yep.
you got a lot of fans in Stillwater. They love hearing what you think. So keep doing it.
Hey, I appreciate that. I always love coming to Stillwater. Great atmosphere, great people, great football, and I'm looking forward to watching this unfold when we all are able to get back to it. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and continue to thank all those frontline people who are keeping us this way. All right?
Same to
Be
you.
good.
How's your son? Does he get out and hoop some?
Yeah, he's doing well. He's going to be a senior this year at Rollins College D2 basketball, and good ready to have what we hope will be his best year. Fingers crossed, and you know how it goes. You just keep
Oh, I
rooting
know.
them on and sending them out there, and then of course the big one is he's going to get his degree, so that'll be really nice.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert. You take care of yourself. Great
All
talking
right.
with you as always.
All right, same with you. Charles Davis from Fox Sports and the NFL Network. And